One small island can rattle oil markets, military planning, and the entire balance of a war. Right now, that island is Kharg, Iran's main oil export lifeline, and the reason it matters is simple. If it gets hit, the consequences do not stay local. Kharg Island sits in the Persian Gulf and handles the bulk of Iran's crude exports. That makes it more than a dot on a map. It's one of the few pressure points that can hurt Iran's revenue fast, which is exactly why it's now showing up in war talk, ceasefire talk, and some very aggressive posturing from Washington. The problem is that once you start talking about taking or striking Kharg, you are no longer talking about a surgical message. You are talking about oil flow, shipping lanes, retaliatory strikes, and American interests getting pulled deeper into another Middle East crisis. If this kind of real-world breakdown helps, hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. To understand why Kharg matters, you have to understand Iran's geography. Most of Iran's coastline is shallow, which means supertankers cannot just dock anywhere and load up. Kharg solves that problem. It's the place where Iran can actually move oil onto global markets at scale. That matters because oil is not a side business for Tehran. It's a core source of state revenue. Cut that off and you squeeze the government, the military, and the entire war machine. That's why some people in Washington look at Kharg and think, there's the lever. But levers cut both ways. A strike on Kharg could reduce Iran's exports, yes. It could also trigger a wider retaliation campaign against Gulf infrastructure, shipping, and anything else Iran can reach. That includes tankers, terminals, pipelines, and the Strait of Hormuz itself. When that waterway gets threatened, the entire world pays attention because a huge share of global oil passes through it. And this is where the usual political spin starts to fall apart. Some coverage treats the island like a neat bargaining chip. Other commentary, especially from clearly partisan outlets, turns every move into a victory lap or a moral sermon. Neither approach changes the hard fact that energy infrastructure is not a toy. Once it's targeted, the price shock hits regular people first. That means higher fuel costs, higher shipping costs, higher airline costs, and more pressure on American households already dealing with sticky inflation. For a lot of voters, this is not abstract geopolitics. It is the price at the pump and the cost of everything trucked across the country. The latest wrinkle is the messaging from President Trump. One day he is threatening to hit Iran very hard. The next, he is saying strikes have been called off because a deal is close. Then he is floating language about taking Kharg Island and assuming total control over Iran's oil and gas markets, in the same breath that he is talking about diplomacy. That is not exactly a stable strategic picture. It is pressure, bluff, and bargaining all mixed together. From Tehran's side, the message is just as blunt. Iranian officials say there is no final agreement yet, that Washington keeps shifting its demands, and that Iran will not cross its red lines under pressure. They have also said the ceasefire is being undermined by repeated strikes and by the broader blockade environment around Hormuz. In other words, both sides are saying the talks are alive, while also warning that the talks could collapse at any moment. Now, there is a big difference between public posturing and actual policy. Trump has claimed many times that a deal with Iran was just around the corner. So far, the pattern has been familiar. A burst of threats, then a sudden claim that progress is being made, then another spike in tension. That does not mean a deal is impossible. It means the process is fragile and heavily theatrical. A lot of the reporting on this war reflects the same bias problem. Some outlets are eager to frame every Trump move as either brilliant masterstroke or total failure. Others sound as if Iran is collapsing one minute and unstoppable the next. The reality is less convenient. Both sides are still capable of escalating, both sides are still trying to shape the story, and neither side has solved the underlying problem. And that problem is bigger than slogans. If the United States wants a quieter Middle East, it should not keep flirting with targets that could drag American forces into direct exposure just off Iran's coast. Here is the part that gets lost when politicians start talking tough. Kharg is not just important, it is exposed. A U.S. ground operation there would place American troops in a fixed position only a short distance from Iran's coastline. That is not some remote outpost. It is a sitting target inside range of drones, missiles, and asymmetric attacks. Even if Iran did not want to hit its own territory directly, a foreign force occupying the island would be an open invitation for escalation. That is why the idea sounds a lot easier in a speech than it would in real life. Even airstrikes carry major risks. If oil export capacity at Kharg is damaged, Iran has incentives to respond where it hurts. Shipping lanes, regional infrastructure, and energy facilities across the Gulf. That could push oil prices much higher, and the market would react before the smoke even cleared. Traders do not wait for certainty, they price fear. And if the Strait of Hormuz becomes unstable, the entire energy picture changes overnight. You do not need a total closure to do damage, you only need enough uncertainty to make insurers nervous, tankers cautious, and buyers desperate. That is why these threats should be taken seriously, even when they sound like social media improvisation. A politician can talk about taking an island in a way that sounds neat and decisive. The battlefield does not care about the phrasing. It cares about terrain, air defenses, logistics, and retaliation. This is also where a more restrained American instinct would make sense. The United States has plenty of reasons to want stable energy markets and safe shipping. It does not need another open-ended war over a piece of coral and concrete in the Persian Gulf. The country has learned over and over that Middle East interventions tend to start with easy slogans and end with expensive consequences. So if the goal is cheaper energy and less chaos, the last thing you want is to light a fuse at one of Iran's most critical export points. There is also a bigger story sitting behind all of this. While the world watches Trump's latest Iran move, the regional war is still grinding on in Gaza and Lebanon. In Gaza, Civilian deaths continue despite the language of ceasefire. Hospitals, homes, and refugee camps are still being hit, and aid access remains badly constrained. A lot of coverage treats that as background noise, which is convenient if you want to move quickly to the next headline, but it is not background to the people living through it. In Lebanon, Israeli strikes have continued to hit towns, roads, and in some cases medical facilities. That creates a cycle where every new strike feeds the next retaliation, and every retaliation gives someone else a reason to escalate again. It's the same trap in different locations. Meanwhile, the Strait of Hormuz keeps hovering over everything like a warning sign. If Iran can disrupt traffic there, even temporarily, the damage goes far beyond the Middle East. Europe feels it, Asia feels it, American consumers feel it, every country that depends on shipping or fuel prices feels it. There's another piece to this that doesn't get enough attention. When governments get nervous about war, they often expand domestic control too. That is why the fight over warrantless surveillance powers matters. The House just rejected an extension of Section 702, which gives the government broad spying authority with no warrant requirement for Americans' communications that gets swept up incidentally. That debate is not separate from foreign policy. Wars abroad almost always come with more power at home. So the real news here is not just Kharg Island. It is the shape of a system that keeps drifting toward escalation while the public pays the bills. Here is the bottom line. Kharg Island matters because it is Iran's export lifeline. Hit it and you hit revenue, leverage, and market stability all at once. Second, any serious move against Kharg could backfire fast. It would expose U.S. forces, invite Iranian retaliation, and likely push oil prices higher, which hurts ordinary Americans long before it hurts any politician. Third, the broader regional war is still alive. Gaza, Lebanon, Hormuz, and now Kharg are all part of the same unstable picture. Calling something a ceasefire doesn't make it one if the bombs keep falling and the shipping lanes keep tightening. And finally, the safest path for the United States is usually the least glamorous one. Protect trade, avoid quagmires, and stop pretending every crisis can be solved with bigger threats and louder headlines. So the question is simple. Should Washington keep escalating around Kharg Island, or should it step back before a local strike turns into a global shock? Drop your take in the comments. If you found this breakdown useful, like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more clear-eyed news analysis without the spin.